in a press conference that was designed to share some information on the tragedy that took place on the 25th of February 2022, where we all know by now that 4 persons lost their lives and 1 person almost lost their life at the Paria trading company with 5 out in the ocean. Since then, it's been 35 days since that incident has taken place today. And after 35 days, I don't think that those families who have been affected directly by the loss of their loved ones and the general public are any closer to understanding what took place and what was the cause of the tragedy that took place on the 25th of February 2022. There has been very little information that has come from Paria, and thus far the facts speak for themselves. The government has limped along in seeking to appoint a committee that fell flat, and now we've been told after 35 days that there will be a commission of inquiry. We've heard that there will be 2 commissioners that would be appointed, and then recently, a week ago, the Prime Minister now said we wouldn't have a 3rd member of the commission, but we would have an international firm that would assist in the commission of inquiry. But as I speak, we don't know who this international firm is going to be. I don't think that the national community and the media and all those who are interested in these activities can understand the pain and the suffering that these families have gone through over the last 35 days unless you've actually interacted with them. And there are members who are here today in this room and outside of this room who have gone overboard in attempting to provide support, whether it be emotional or otherwise, and who have come forward and supported those families that have lost their loved ones. And I want to publicly thank and express the appreciation for those families, on behalf of those families, to those people who have come forward. Despite the tragedy that has taken place, we have to get to the bottom of what took place on that day. And the scarcity of information that has been provided by Paria has triggered other persons, the families themselves, and other public interested in persons trying to find out and to decipher what are the facts of what took place on that day. Today I want to shed and share some information with you that when the information is revealed, I think I can say for myself, the general public and those who are interested and the families themselves will be shocked to find out what I'm about to reveal to you today. So I want to go straight to the screen that is in front of you, and you can follow as I go along. The first document that I have before you is the registration of death in relation to KAZIM Ali Jr. And this is a government document. And the reason why I'm producing these documents will become clear as we go along. So this is the registration of death. And what I want to pay attention to is if you look at the second line of that document, you will see that it says the date of death. And bear in mind that this incident took place on the 25th of February 2022. The registration of death says that the date of death was the 28th of February 2022. That is Monday, the 28th of February. We all know now, or if you don't know, you will know that the bodies of these deceased persons, these 4 persons, were recovered on Monday, the 28th of February 2022. So I've highlighted to you on this document, as you can see in this circle, that I want to just go down slowly, and you will see that this document is signed by the district registrar on the 4th of March 2022, and you will see the signature there of the person who is signaling from the government side that the death took place on the 28th of February 2022. The second document that you see before you there is the death certificate. This is what they call the temporary death certificate. And you will see in the second column, it says, when died. This is KAZIM Ali Jr. You will see the name there, KAZIM Ali Jr. in the third column. When died, 28th of February, 2022. And if you look at the right-hand corner, at the bottom, you will see District Registrar, March the 4th, 2022. Cause of death, asphyxia, drowning, certified by doctor. So, the official death certificate I have produced to you, you will see is there, KAZIM Ali Jr., date of death, 28th of February, 2022. So that the three documents that emanate from the authorities, the public authorities, certify that these people died, well, this individual died on the 28th of February, 2022, Monday the 28th of February, 2022. And when I go scroll further down, you will see the Registrar General's signature there. So for all intents and purposes, if nothing were to have been done after the 28th of February 2022, the only documents in your possession or that would have emanated from any public authority would have told you that KAZIM Ali Jr. would have died on the 28th of February 2022. On the advice of, upon taking legal advice, the family of KAZIM Ali Jr. decided that they would request and have retained the services of a private pathologist to examine the body of KAZIM Ali Jr. and to produce a report to certify, in particular, the date upon which this individual died. That was the main purpose for commissioning the services of a private autopsy, because we were not satisfied, as no one can be satisfied, that these persons died on the 28th of February 2022. It is an affront to common sense, it is an affront to logic. It just doesn't make any sense that you would certify that these persons died on the day that they were taken out of the pipe when their bodies were recovered at 6 p.m. And the timeline is very important. So I want you to bear in mind the timeline as we speak. So this particular document that I have on the screen, I would like you to pay particular attention to, because this, I think, is the first time that you will be seeing this document. Now, this document, well, not this document, but this picture is a picture of the operations room, the blackboard in the operations room of Paria when this incident took place. This is what Paria had on there. You'll see log of events, and this is what they had on their board. This is what was guiding Paria at the time. We have a picture of it. This is in Paria's handwriting, and this is what they had on their board. This was guiding what was going on the day that this incident took place. So that if you look at the first endorsement there, you will see at 2:15, 5 divers enter the chamber. That is the hyperbaric chamber. And if you go down if you go to the second endorsement, you will see at 2:45, diver Andrew Farrar informed the visual camera non-functional. That is when the persons on the barge lost contact with the persons in the hyperbaric chamber. Now I've highlighted this for a particular reason, right? And I want you to pay particular attention. This is Paria, and I want you to pay particular attention to the fact that this incident took place at 2:45, which is 14:45. And at 15:48, you see an arrow there pointing at 15:48. HSE personnel S. Ramki soon reported chances of survival are slim. So at 2:45, they lost contact with the divers in the hyperbaric chamber. And in 1 hour and 3 minutes after that, Paria, on their operations whiteboard, is saying HSE personnel S. Ramki soon reported chances of survival are slim in an hour and 3 minutes. So take your attention to the last endorsement. C. Piper, Colin Piper, informed ICP, one person rescued. So, at 3:48, the HSE personnel from Paria is reporting that the chances of survival, they have determined in 1 hour and 3 minutes, the chances of survival when this incident took place. In an hour and 3 minutes, they came to the conclusion, they consulted with their experts, they got information, they came to a conclusion in an hour and 3 minutes that the chances of survival are slim. But 1 hour later, 2 hours later after the incident took place, 15, 16, 17, 2 hours later, after they reported that, a man comes out of the chamber. So after the survival chances were slim, at 17:45, a man comes out of the chamber. And there's nothing that happens after that. Nothing. The chances of survival are slim conclusion. Doesn't change. When a man comes out of the hyperbaric chamber alive and tells you they are alive down there, Paria does nothing. Even if you came to the conclusion, I don't know how it is possible for you to come to the conclusion in an hour and 3 minutes that the chances of survival are slim, that 2 hours after that, a man emerges from the pipe alive and is conscious enough to tell you that they are alive in the pipe, and up to that point and at every point thereafter, and I will make reference to Paria's press release that they issued on the 7th of March, they did not change their position that the chances of survival are slim. It didn't get better for the people who were in the pipe, it got worse, because from their chances of survival are slim, when one would expect if there are any chances of survival, you will make every attempt to save them. It got worse, because the facts I will demonstrate to you were that Paria prevented any form of rescue for those people. Despite their press release, I will demonstrate to you what happened. So I want you to take note of the timelines here. 14, 15, they went into the chamber. Half an hour later, they lost contact. 1 hour and 3 minutes later, Paria came to the conclusion that the chances of survival are slim. And at 17:45, Colin Piper informed ICP, one person rescued. One doesn't have to look for an expert or get advice or have a meeting. If you have any humanity in you, when that one person came out of the chamber and told you that there were people alive in that pipeline, every human being with any form of compassion for life, right, or any form of caring for the people who were there, would have made every attempt. In every other country in the world, you see it every single day, would have made every attempt to rescue those people. And wait till I demonstrate to you what will come next. So, as I told you, the family of KAZIM Ali Jr. decided that they were not satisfied with the reports, the pathology reports that were done on the bodies. And therefore we took the decision to retain the services of Professor Hubert Daisley to conduct a private post-mortem on the body of KAZIM Ali Jr. And I will disclose to you today, as you will see on the screen, what are the findings of Dr. Daisley. So, for anyone who doesn't know, I've just highlighted his qualifications there for you. And I don't expect during the time that we have that you will be able to go through, but this document will be provided to you. So this is the post-mortem report that is signed off by Dr. Daisley, and you will see as we go through quickly that KAZIM Ali's body was found floating in a petroleum and water emulsion mixture in a metal pipeline belonging to Paria Company Limited. The pipeline was 30 inches in diameter, and the findings are all there in terms of the complete examination that was done by Dr. Daisley. So, at page 5 of the document, you will see that Dr. Daisley found that having been sucked into the pipe, certain injuries were suffered by KAZIM Ali Jr. and the other persons. And you will see that from an examination of the body, Mr. Ali suffered a fracture left tibia and fibula bone. That is injuries to his leg upon being put into. These fractures produced blood loss at the site, swelling, pain and inflammation. This injury would have incapacitated Mr. Ali's movement and confined him to the space within these 30 inches in diameter pipeline, which contained petroleum, water and noxious gases. Now, this is what I want Trinidad to be able to really see, what has been found here. I want you to pay close attention to this page, which is the conclusion of Dr. Daisley. And if you go to paragraph 3, you will see, I want to read through this very carefully too. Right. The accident that brought about the death of Mr. Ali took place on Friday, the 25th of February, 2022 at approximately 2:45 p.m. at Paria, Pointe-a-Pitre, at berth 6 in the Gulf of Paria. Mr. Ali's body was recovered on Monday, the 28th of February, 2022 at approximately 6 p.m. Mr. Ali's body was in the petroleum and water emulsion mixture for approximately 76 hours. Given the findings at autopsy that Mr. Ali had wrinkle and whitening of the skin of his feet without skin slippage when his body was discovered at 6 p.m. on Monday, the 28th of February 2022, puts Mr. Ali's body in a very early stage of decomposition. And this is what Dr. Daisley found. It seems that an approximate time of Mr. Ali's death would have been some 48 hours plus or minus 12 hours before his body was discovered. 48 hours plus or minus 12 hours from when his body was discovered. And his body was discovered at 6 p.m. on Monday, the 28th of February 2022. So, I just wanted to, I know it's difficult to probably calculate that in your head. So this is the this is really the conclusion spread out in terms of hours. The autopsy report, the conclusion of Dr. Daisley was death occurred 48 hours before recovery of body, give or take 12 hours. Time of the incident, 25th of February 2022, 2:45 p.m. Time of this recovery of the body of KAZIM Ali Jr., 28th of February, 6 p.m. 48 hours before the recovery of the body would be 6 p.m. on the 26th of February 2022. That is Saturday, 6 p.m. on Saturday. That is 48 hours before the body was discovered. So KAZIM Ali Jr. was inside that pipeline, according to the post-mortem report, alive from 2:45 on Friday, the 25th of February, until 48 hours before would be 6 p.m. on Saturday. Think about the time period involved. 2:45 on Friday evening to 6 p.m. on Saturday evening. Inside the pipeline. Alive. Earliest time of death, give or take. Remember the report says give or take 12 hours. So let's give 12 hours. That will take you until 6 a.m. 6 a.m. on Saturday morning. And the latest time of death would be 6 a.m. on Sunday morning. Can you imagine that while this man was inside this 30-inch pipeline, alive, fighting for his life, the cutoff period, the autopsy says, give or take 12 hours, the average time that he would have been alive for would have been 26 hours after that incident took place. 27 hours after that incident took place. At a maximum, on the earliest time of death, he would have been alive in the pipeline for 15 hours and 15 minutes. And on the latest time of death, he would have been alive in the pipeline for 39 hours. 39 hours and 15 minutes. Inside of the pipeline. Alive. During that time, the security reports that were taken were that there were persons who were knocking on the line at berth 5. They went in at berth 6. At berth 5, they were knocking on the pipeline. They were not just knocking on the pipeline, they were communicating by knocking on the pipeline. So LMCS workers were knocking on the pipeline and getting responses from the people who were inside of the pipeline alive. And during that time, Paria had stopped. They came to the conclusion that they will leave them inside the pipeline, alive, to die. These people were left in the pipeline, fully well knowing that they were alive, to die. And there is no other report. There can be no other report because Paria didn't commission any report to contradict the findings of Dr. Daisley. So the uncontradicted facts of this story is this, that these people were sucked into this pipeline. When Christopher Budram came out of the pipeline, he told the LCMS and Paria, they are alive. When you speak to Christopher Budram, he will tell you, he told him, I'm coming out to come back and get you. An LCMS worker disobeyed the orders of Paria to not enter the water and went into the hyperbaric chamber and rescued Budram when he came up from on the pipe. He creeped out from where he was. And you know why that was so? Because with all of the experts that Paria got their advice from, they didn't realize that these people in the pipeline, there were air pockets in the pipeline that allowed them to survive for up to 39 hours after. And they gave a different meaning to left them there for dead, because that is what they did. There is no facts that could contradict this, because this is the only post-mortem report. The reason why I told you, why I made mention and showed you the reports that came from the Registrar General, is to explain to you the ridiculous conclusion that came to, that the people died when they were brought out of the pipeline. But the private autopsy that was done demonstrated that at least for 15 hours, at the least for 15 hours, they were alive. And for the maximum 39 hours, they were alive. And what did Paria do? What did Paria do to save those 4 people that were clearly alive inside of the pipeline after they were told that these people were alive when Christopher Budram came out? At 12 o'clock in the night, staff members of LMCS left berth 5, went to berth 6, knocked on the pipeline, and the knocking that they knocked on the pipeline was responded to by people who were alive in the pipeline. Can anybody ever explain the inhumanity of leaving 4 individuals, the lack of any compassion of leaving 4 individuals and making no attempt to rescue them during that period of time? When this report was handed to the parents of KAZIM Ali Jr., they couldn't read it after they found the conclusion of when they saw the conclusion of Dr. Daisley. Because they broke down in tears knowing that their child was left there to die by the company that was in charge of that scene. And 35 days on, you hear nothing from Paria. Bird 5 and Bird 6 is a criminal scene where a criminal offense took place. And after 35 days, they have taken no steps to preserve what was going on there. In every single investigation that has been undertaken by this government since 2015, when they suspect, not when they find, when they suspect anything goes wrong, what's the first thing they do? They suspend everybody. And they say, you know why we do that? Because we don't want any contamination of the investigation while it's going on. From Geraldine John to Gary Griffith and everybody in between. I was involved in an incident at HDC when this government took power. They removed 9 executive members of HDC. You know why? They said we don't want any contamination of the investigation. Why is it different in this? Why is the board of Paria continue to operate, continue to manage, continue to be in control of that scene? You would have seen a few days ago, about a couple of weeks ago, you would have seen that the same evidence that the Minister of Energy came into the public domain and said, we sent a camera down inside of the pipe to see what was going on. That evidence that's supposed to be in the custody of Paria has reached into the public domain, and nobody can tell you how it reached into the public domain. That could be evidence in a criminal offense. And somehow a private individual has gotten hold of evidence that only could have been in Paria's custody and sharing it with all of Trinidad and Tobago. And nobody has any explanation for that. The only explanation Paria gave you on the 7th of March was when LCMS issued a statement and started to put the facts out there for people to understand what was going on. And you know what Paria did in their press statement? They told you in their press statement of the 7th of March 2022 that upon being notified of the incident by LMCS, Paria immediately activated its incident management team. And Paria also contacted emergency response organizations including Trinidad and Tobago Coast Guard, Trinidad and Tobago Fire Service, Occupational Safety and Health Agency, and the Southwest Regional Health Authority. And after all of that, right, this is what they said. It was determined by Paria. This is Paria's report. They said it was determined by Paria and supported by the Coast Guard, the Occupational Health and Safety Agency, and external experts who are unnamed up to now, that it was too dangerous for anybody to proceed further into the pipeline without posing significant threat to life. That is Paria telling you that. You know, a man disobeyed the orders of the Coast Guard and went down inside the pipeline, all the way down in the vertical pipeline, all the way across, right, and came back out alive. So, the conclusion of the post-mortem report was that at the maximum 39 hours and 15 minutes, a man was alive down there, while Paria was preventing people from going into the pipeline and rescuing them. At the least, he was alive for 15 hours. And you see this diagram? This is the diagram that the Minister of Energy quickly had drawn up for his press conference when he came to speak to the public. And he tells you this is the diagram that represented what was taking place. Right? Let me explain something to you. You see this diagram that tells you this is the pipeline that the people went down inside. This is the hyperbaric chamber, and this is where they were. They've sent down something, and it's stick here. This is not a true representation of what took place down there. You know why? I'll tell you why. These two risers on berth 5 and berth 6 are cast in concrete. So you know what that does? It sinks over time. And this line that is 1,200 feet on the seabed is not like what the minister showed you here. This line, over the period of time that it would have been in existence, it shapes to the seabed. That's what it does. You see the members of the OWT were shaking their head because they know what is going on. They are persona non grata for the government. They have no part to play in this. But they are the people who know all the workers who have been working here for decades. So they will tell you that this straight line here that represents 1,200 feet of pipeline is not 1,200 straight feet of pipeline like this. The reason why they were able to survive is because this pipeline moves and shapes itself over time to the contour of the seabed. And what happened when they were sucked into the pipeline was that there were air pockets on the curves, the accents. So when you hear the facts of what actually took place, is that this was a situation where along this line they were sucked in, and where the air pockets occurred, they were surviving in the air pockets. And while they were surviving in the air pockets, Paria took the decision to stop anybody from going down there. And let me make it clear to you, LMCS had their divers ready, the equipment ready, and they were prepared to go down into that pipeline and take those divers out because they were alive. They were alive up to 39 hours. And they were prevented from doing that by Paria. And you see, so that puts an end to this. Because anybody, you don't have to be a scientist or a physicist to understand that if you have water or petroleum or any mixture inside of this and it's flat, the people can't survive. Which is what they put the video out there to tell you. They put the video out there to tell you, look at this. Nobody could have survived in that because it's just water. So how they could have been breathing underneath there if they're inside the water? And this diving equipment that was stuck there, you know that diving equipment that was stuck there? Because when you hear the evidence of Mr. Christopher Boodram was able to come out because when they went into the hyperbaric chamber and everything was sucked in, the equipment wasn't on their back. When you go into the hyperbaric chamber, you take off your equipment because you're like in an empty room and you're working. And when the vortex took place, it sucked everything in. So Boodram found a tank and found his way out of the pipe into the hyperbaric chamber, and that's how he was rescued. And these people were alive. Can you imagine what they went through for 39 hours, knocking on a pipe to tell people to come and help us? And Paria took a decision. They're not allowing anybody to go down inside it. Those are the facts. And like I told you, there is no report from anyone that can contradict that. So, I want to say today, you see this idea of setting up a commission of inquiry, and 35 days have passed. Over the past 35 days, every few days in the newspaper, you are seeing the family of Yusuf Henry, Nagisa, KAZIM Ali, all of them, Kurban, right? The families are begging after their loved ones have been taken from them for help. They are begging Paria for assistance. Every single one of those men that died were the breadwinner of their family, right? And you see this idea of setting up a commission of inquiry, it's not going to work. And it's not going to bear any fruit for the people. When the commission of inquiry, when it is set up eventually, right? what the findings of the Commission of Inquiry are going to do for the families who have lost their loved ones. Are going to provide anything to them? Are going to give them any comfort? Are going to put food on the table? The Commission of Inquiry that they propose to set up is going to be as useless as every other Commission of Inquiry that has been set up. And I say that from the horse's mouth because I was involved in the largest one. So, we had a Commission of Inquiry for the coup. We had a Commission of Inquiry for Las Alturas. We had a Commission of Inquiry for HCU. We had a Commission of Inquiry for CLICO. And the report for the Commission of Inquiry for CLICO, I know Mr. David Lee had sent out an FYI. It's still sitting on the desk of the Prime Minister and the DPP. And you know how long CLICO take place? 13th of January 2009. We're 2022. And not a single man has been held to account up to now. So the Commission of Inquiry is a mechanism to allow people to gallivant and be unaccountable and continue for a few more years with no answers. And we're not supporting that. In 35 days, they appoint a committee that collapsed. They appoint a Commission of Inquiry that can't get off the ground because it isn't even appointed properly as yet. So you see this idea of a Commission of Inquiry, we're not supporting that. If what has to take place in this situation, let the occupational health and safety people do what they have to do and do the investigation. Let the TTPS do the investigation. When they finish with the investigation, let them send it to the authorities. Because the same Commission of Inquiry, when it writes a report, right? The last Commission of Inquiry that investigated the affairs of CL Financial Group, you know what happened? When the Commission of Inquiry was going on, the Director of Public Prosecution sent a lawyer to the Commission of Inquiry to say, we don't want you investigating anything to do with that. There are criminal offenses that took place. The place to investigate that, let the police do it. The money that you're going to spend on the Commission of Inquiry, give it to occupational health and safety and let them do it. But a Commission of Inquiry is not going to serve the interests of anybody. It is not going to produce any benefit to the families. Take the money that you're going to spend on the Commission of Inquiry, man up to what went on in Paria, and fire the Paria board, suspend them, right? Because they are the only people that have continued in office, holding positions on the board when an investigation is going on. How that could be right? That entire board should be suspended, and it should have been suspended 35 days ago, not today. Because in 35 days, right, I don't know and you don't know what has taken place at Bird 5 and Bird 6 and the reports of Paria. Nobody could tell. And they have gone on like normal. It's business as usual down at Paria. That is the only board that has an investigation going on with criminal consequences that could possibly occur and criminal offenses that could possibly occur that have continued like normal. Business as usual for them. So today, I call on the Prime Minister, the Minister of Energy and the powers that be, to immediately suspend that board. And all of the people, right, from top executive management, come all the way down, who were involved in what I just put on the whiteboard there for you. In those decisions to stop people from going in and rescuing the people who are alive for 39 hours. Let the Trinidad and Tobago Police Service give them the resources, let them do what they have to do. Let the occupational health and safety people. Why is it that only when something serious happens in this country, right, and the public starts to get on, right, and call for people, call for accountability, call for transparency, that you want to set up a Commission of Inquiry? So the OSH people, when you set up the Commission of Inquiry, what's going to happen to the OSH people? What's going to happen to the investigation that the TTPS is taking, that is undergoing right now? And who will benefit from the Commission of Inquiry? The lawyers, the commissioners. That is not going to serve the people, that is not going to benefit the people who it matter most to. You have 4 families. One man, Henry, he has 3 sets of children. Right? 3 minor sets of children. Right? Whose mothers don't know where the next meal coming from. And like I said, business as usual. They have money to set up a commission of inquiry, right? While the families of the most affected people, right, can't put food on the table, can't have money to retain lawyers, right? They setting up a commission of inquiry, and at the end of the day, the people who matter most will not be taking part in that. It took them 25th of February, the incident took place. Everybody in this country saw the treatment that was meted out to those families outside the roundabout at Point of Paria. They didn't care about the families when this was going on. The families begging for information while their loved ones begging for oxygen inside of the tank alive. And on the 7th, 10 days after, right? They're telling you, here what they start on the press release. Because LMCS sent out a press release, 10 days after, you know what they're going to tell the people? Paria Fuel Trading Company, first and foremost, extends sincere condolences to the family of the loved ones of Faisal Kurban, Rishi Nagisa, Yusuf Henry, and KAZIM Ali Jr., the 4 divers who were so tragically lost their lives following a work incident on Friday the 25th of February 2022 at Paria's facility at Point of Paria. This has been a profound loss for the families, the employer LMCS Limited, Paria, and indeed the entire country. It took them 10 days to express condolences. So I hope that the information that is provided, that we provided to you today, will demonstrate to you the extent of the recklessness, the extent of the negligence, the extent of the lack of caring and humanity that pervaded the situation that occurred on the 25th. And in 35 days, they have had the opportunity to do as they please, while the families have suffered in a manner that you cannot describe. Because as we speak, every single day, they cry out for help. And all that they get from the government, they will set up a commissioner, we will set up a committee, the committee collapsed, we will set up a commission of inquiry, that will give us 4 years to dilly-dally with it. And during that time, right, you have children, you have wives, you have families who have lost their loved ones with no accountability from Paria. None. And let Paria answer the question why you allow people to gasp for breath for 39 hours while you did nothing. And there is no contradicting that they did nothing for 39 hours. So, if there are any questions on the material that I have provided to you, I'll take those questions from you now.
Gentlemen, Newsday, have you made these findings available to the TTPS, and will you be making these findings available to the TTPS?
Jensen, like I said earlier, our position in this matter is that the authorities that have responsibilities, statutory and otherwise, in the country for investigating this matter, we will provide all of the assistance to them. I am in the process of preparing statements on behalf of all of the employees of LMCS and all of the persons who were involved in this incident to provide them to both the TTPS and to the Occupational Health and Safety Authority so that they can carry out their statutory duty and find responsibility where it is. I can also tell you that under the law of Trinidad and Tobago, where you have an unnatural death, this is an unnatural death, immediately there is supposed to be a coroner's inquest, and we are going to pursue that as well, because that is one of the means by which those who ought to be held accountable under the law.
And if the Commission of Inquiry actually gets off the ground, would you also be providing that information to the Commission of Inquiry?
I will have to take instructions from my client as to what participation they will have in the Commission of Inquiry. But what I can tell you at this stage is, having regard to the way in which this matter has been brought out in the public domain, the most material fact that I explained when earlier in this press conference, that material that ought to form an essential part of this inquiry can be given to an individual who can share it on Facebook for the whole country, that is supposed to be confidential in the custody of Paria, is not something that engenders any confidence on the part of the people of this country and on the part of the people most directly involved, that anything that this government does in relation to this incident will be accountable and transparent.
And my final question, why should we accept the second autopsy? And let me preface that with, in my years of journalism, I've never heard or never seen a private autopsy not favor those who paid for it. So then why should we accept this?
Well, the position on that is very simple. I have provided the qualifications of Mr. Daisley. Mr. Daisley is a professor in the field that he operates in, and it was open. It was open first of all, because one thing that I didn't mention to you is this: when the bodies were taken out of the pipeline, the families asked and requested. I met with the families 1 hour, all of them. I met with them 1 hour before those bodies were found. And every single family asked whether they can be there when the bodies were taken out of the pipeline. They just wanted to be present. They just wanted to see what was going on. And they were denied that request. So that if there is anybody who has been guilty or responsible for trying to conceal any facts in this matter, it hasn't been the families. And it was like, I want to get back to answer your question directly. It was open to the government, it was open to Paria to do a private autopsy and find out exactly when they died. But what I can tell you is probably that wasn't done, because that wasn't, the conclusion for that wouldn't have been in their interest. The families were entitled to find out what was happening to their loved ones, and they took steps to do that. I don't think anybody can put responsibility at their feet for trying to find out the facts of what happened with their loved ones. I know your question wasn't meant to bring across that impression, but I want to explain to you that the first people who had the opportunity to get to the bottom of this was not the families, it was the government.
Was LMCS able to do any analysis to determine what was the divers to be sucked into the pipeline?
That's a very important question, Anna. The position with that is that we are in the process of retaining external international experts. Hopefully we will have all the material that will be made available from Paria to be able to give them the facts, more than what we know at present. What I have indicated to you in terms of the diagram that I showed and shared with you is from the experience of people who have worked on this birth 5 and birth 6 over a period of time, and the facts that came out from the statement of Mr. Christopher Budram, who was actually in the pipe and was able to tell you what was happening inside of the pipe. So that what caused the vortex and what caused them to be sucked into the pipeline and ended up there in that tragic in those tragic circumstances is something that has to be determined scientifically.
I want to answer.
Sure.
Because I want to disagree with you that commissions of inquiry have no value. What has no value is government's use of the tool of a report from a commission of inquiry. All of our commissions of inquiry have ended with reports that went nowhere because of government. But this commission of inquiry could work to identify where there was negligence in the planning stage of the project, and that's important information. And I think that the families should absolutely want to make sure that they have professional investigators asking those questions as to the timeline from the moment the project was conceptualized until the divers hit the water, that somebody in Paria knew exactly what they were doing, what they were supposed to be doing, so that that job could have been handled professionally. I think the problem with the vortex that none of us know anything about is that it wasn't handled professionally. And that's what we got. from being there with the families for the 3 days that we sat in the bushes, all the professionals that came and spoke said that the missing information is the information about what was planned and what was executed that led to this.
Philip, the position with that is this. Criminal consequences or actions that have criminal consequences, there is only one avenue for that to reach anywhere in this country. That is the office of the Director of Public Prosecution. The government can't do it, the opposition can't do it, no private individual can do it. At the end of the day, the decision is up to the Director of Public Prosecution to make a decision as to whether somebody will be prosecuted for any criminal offense in this country. And just like you said, yes, there have been commissions of inquiries. The Pullman Commission was 1,000 pages long, and it has been sitting on the desk of the Director of Public Prosecution since it was published. And all I am saying is this, yes, you get reports, but what is the benefit of the report when at the end of the day, let me finish, at the end of the day, the actual decision that has to be made is vested in the office of the Director of Public Prosecution. All of the families in these matters, that's the criminal side of it. All of the families in this matter have retained lawyers. All of them. And at the end of the day, the civil side of it is going to be prosecuted by the lawyers. There's no control over that by anybody, any government, or anybody like that. But ask yourself this question. And I understand the value of what you are saying in terms of finding out exactly where the problem is to prevent it repeating itself somewhere else. But ask yourself this. Is it right for the families to wait 5 years or 4 years or 3 years or let's say 1 year, right, for a commission of inquiry to produce a report, and the report is then sent to the Director of Public Prosecution? And you know very well like everybody else in this country, it just sits there. What benefit is that to the families? What benefit? And then why? Ask yourself this question. So what happens to the Occupational Health and Safety people? And what happens to the TTPS? What happens to their reports that will be compiled and sent to the Director of Public Prosecution in any event?
I don't disagree with you. You've buried us in a lot of information there, and I want to say that none of it is wrong. It goes to the heart of how failed this country is. That we have a Director of Public Prosecutions and it comes to nobody. So nobody knows what's on his desk and when it's ever going to come to fruition. I look back as far back as the Scott drug report, Justice Scott. Did it ever reach a DPP's desk? We don't know. We never know, and Trinidadians are treated like they don't matter. So taxpayers' dollars are used to pay hundreds of millions of dollars for these Commission of Inquiry reports, and then nobody accounts to the people who pay for it. I agree with you on that. There are criminal investigations that take place, and I agree with you on that also, and those things should happen concurrently, simultaneously. Police should be arresting people. But there is information that shouldn't get lost with this, and I don't think that you're wrong. The families need to be taken care of, and that's a conversation we have to have. But somewhere along the way, Paria as a company, the board and the management you spoke about, were criminally negligent in their planning of this event, and that cannot be ignored.
And one of the things that is very sad about all of this is simply this. You, an intelligent individual, must understand what could have taken place in the last 35 days and continuing with no accountability by anyone. Just imagine if you were sitting on a board where 4 people lost their lives through something that we can't explain, but at the end of the day, the board has to say something about it. And we are in control. And we are in control of what is going on at birth 5 and birth 6 and everything that happened out there. And nobody, check section 47 of the Occupational Health and Safety Act. I don't want to get into all of that today, but check it and see that the Occupational Health and Safety Act has provisions that allow OSHA to go out there and take control of that site and prevent anybody from contaminating what is going on, right? And ask yourself, well, what more power you want a commission of inquiry to do than to go and do that? Or ask yourself why they didn't do that and what could have taken. I can't say and you can't say, right? But what I can tell you is there's a vast opportunity for something to go wrong or for something to be done that should not have been done, where you have 35 days of time to do it and the country, right, is on your back for answers. And that is not right. And that is why I said it cannot be right, but if it cannot be right in this country for the powers that be to suspend when they want, when it is convenient to them, right? And where you have this most serious industrial tragedy taking place in decades in this country, right? To sit down and say the board must continue in power.
That is,
Gerald.
we agree on that 100%. And I just wrap it up and I have to go now, but I agree 100% because we've been calling for that from Sunday. That the board should not have been left in charge of the crime scene. That should never happen. And we told the Prime Minister from Sunday that there are professional organizations in this world with responsibility for these types of projects and investigations for tragedies that flow from these projects. And that is what they should have hired from the get-go. To hear him come back after the fact 35 days later and say that they are now looking to do that shows that they had no interest whatsoever in finding out what really
I want to tell you one thing about that, as you just said, right? Yes, David.
Yeah, I just want to go back to when you started off your presentation with the blackboard or the whiteboard
Right.
timeline, and you came to you had 1, 2, 3 points, and the third one was when Piper reported on it was written on the blackboard that Boudram came out of the chamber, right? And then everything shut down. The question I would like to ask is that I don't know if you're aware or know what rescue plan that they have when Boudram came out of the pipe at 5:45 or 6:45, whatever time it was, based on the first one where Ramdeen said there was a slim chance of survival. So now you had someone surviving at 2 hours later. What, if you're aware, could you tell us what plans Paria had in place to actually try to go back in and rescue those divers?
You might have hit the nail on the head better than me, because the point about demonstrating what I put on the board, which was Paria's board, is that when they, after an hour and 3 minutes, said that the chances of survival was slim, one would have expected that logically, 2 hours after that, when you found that somebody came out of the pipeline and said they are alive inside there,
Correct.
that original conclusion that you came to with chances of survival are slim would have been changed, and somebody would have then taken steps to say, listen, we now know that the people are alive. If we thought the chances of survival were slim before, it is clearly not that way now, and let us do something to activate some kind of rescue. The answer to your question is simple. Paria in their own report said it was determined by Paria and supported by the Coast Guard, OSH and external experts that it was too dangerous for anyone to proceed further into the pipeline without posing significant risk of life. And that is the conclusion that, and you realize that when Paria put this out, they never said it was supported by LMCS. So that Paria never changed. The point of demonstrating that is that even after a man came out after 3 hours, they were not prepared to change their position. And there were people waiting on the barge saying, we are prepared to go in. One man disobeyed. If that man didn't disobey David, we don't know if Boudram would have been alive today. But I want to just go back to one thing that Philip said, which is this. I sat in my office at Cornelius Street, and I took up my computer, and I went and found the International Organization for Commercial Divers. And from my cell phone on number 7 Cornelius Street, I called. And I was able, by one telephone call, to speak to the Vice President of the International Organization for Commercial Divers. I can't remember the man's last name. His first name is Phil. And when I spoke to the man, right, I'm not involved in the investigation, I spoke to him, and the man said, the International Organization for Commercial Divers said, they heard about this incident in Trinidad, and they are willing to come to Trinidad and participate in finding out what went wrong, because this is part of their industry, this is what they do. And they were volunteering, right, that the British equivalent to their organization, that's an American organization, the British equivalent to that organization was willing to come to Trinidad, right, and help to find out what went wrong. So you telling me that if I could sit down on Cornelius Street and make a telephone call and speak to the Vice President of the International Commercial Divers Association, the government of Trinidad and Tobago, led by the Honorable Dr. Keith Crowley and Mr. Stuart Young, the Minister of Energy, couldn't pick up the phone and use the US Embassy and find out to get a proper organization here? What does that tell you? Do you really think that after 35 days they want accountability? Or they want anybody who has any qualification to actually come here and investigate what went on when those 4 people died? The answer is clearly no. Because it takes one telephone call. I can tell you, it takes one telephone call to get it done. There are international people. What happened on the 25th of February went worldwide in the diving community. And there are people who care about those people and what took place here outside of Trinidad and Tobago more than the people who are involved in Trinidad and Tobago.
I know we got 1 million views on our live video that took it public even though it was Carnival weekend. We had Mr. Suratan on this phone on Saturday talking to somebody in the boardroom that was making a decision if they were sending people to do a rescue or not, to answer David's question. And Suratan was begging to get inside. He was the man that was responsible for maintaining those pipes for decades. And they wouldn't let him in. They had no interest in it.
So you can,
they had no interest in it.
You could tell me that at 12 o'clock, right, 2:45 this incident took place. At 12 o'clock in the night, an LCMS worker is knocking, right, on the pipeline. And when they knock 1, 2, 3, right, somebody's responding 1, 2, 3 back to you, right, and you leave the people to die. Unconscionable doesn't begin to describe that. That is industrial murder. That is what it is. And there is no effort in the last 35 days that anybody could point to say that the people who are responsible for this, the government, the Ministry of Energy, or anybody, right, has done anything to bring accountability and transparency to this. So that we have to do what we have to do. Right?
Mr. Ramdeen, just described it as industrial murder. I hope I didn't misquote you there. I wanted to find out what are the criminal offenses that can be prosecuted coming out of this.
Manslaughter is clearly one that can come out of it. And there are a range of criminal offenses that arise out of negligent acts that has led to the loss of life. And the only way that one can really determine what are the offenses that one can that can arise out of the facts of these events is to look at the facts carefully and see where the responsibility lies. Up to now on the board that I showed you, S. Ramkisoon, who came to that conclusion 1 or 3 minutes before, nobody don't know who S. Ramkisoon is, you know. And nobody doesn't know how that person and what material they came to answer the question that Member of Parliament Lee posed just now, which is this: even if you thought that the chances were slim, when 2 hours after you came to that conclusion, somebody came out of the pipe alive and told you they are down there alive, right? If you read that man's statement, Christopher Boudram, and you hear what he said about what they were doing inside our pipeline and how they work, right? Tears will fall from your eyes, you know. Because those people were alive, they were begging to remain alive, and nobody helped them, you know. The decision was to shut the pipe on them. So, I have copies of all of the documents that we referred to, right? And I will distribute those copies to you, and I hope that you do justice to the... Yeah?
I would like to add to Mr. Ramdeen regarding the S. Ramkisoon. Paria right now, Paria, the safety department, does not have an operational safety department. The safety operations are contracted with Kenson Services.
Good.
I would have truly figured out information act. I would have acquired some of these contracts, what Paria is doing right now, because they don't have a department, a safety department with personnel to really execute their policies and all these things. They are contract now that the Kenson Services. So the question have to be asked is S. Ramkisoon employee of Kenson Services or Paria?
Your guess is as good as mine, but what I want to tell you, what is no guessing game is this: it is incredulous that any investigation or any discussion or any conversation could be had in this country about something taking place at Pointe-a-Pitre without the OWTO being part of that conversation. It is insulting to the people of this country for that to take place. And what is happening right now is I do business about whether the OWTO want to buy the refinery or not, you know. The point about it is that is the recognized union for the workers of that place, right? And they have decades of experience as to what could have gone on there. And nobody can look me in the face and tell me that the OWTU doesn't have a part to play in saying what went right or what went wrong and let the chips fall where they may. But that is another example, just like the Facebook video, that is another example to demonstrate to you that it is more about personalities in this thing than about finding solutions to what went wrong and answering the questions. And people are prepared, in this country, people are prepared to put personality, right, and riff, right, and ego before getting it right. And that is why as a country, we cannot move forward. And that is why this can happen today, right? And when you go back and you listen and you hear and you start to investigate what was going on, we are lucky that 4 people, right, lost their lives then on the 25th, as unfortunate as it was. Because leave Paria as it is, you will see next week or next month or next year, it might be 4, it might be 10, or it might be 20, and we'll be in the same position, no better. Because what happened on the 25th of February is not something that is a mistake that happened on that day alone. It is things that have been continuing to happen, and you as the union will know exactly what I'm speaking about in relation to what takes place down there. Right? So it is not a mistake that happened on the 25th, you know. It was building up over time. And it is in the interest of the people at Paria to not have the union involved in that, because it has exposure and it has people who have to be held accountable and responsible. And that is why it ends up like that. You know why? The ultimate cost at the end of the day is somebody's life. And no matter what compensation you give to the family, it is an empty benefit to say that the life of my father is worth so much, or the life of my husband is worth so much. Right? So that is the position. Thank you very, very much to everyone who's attended.